Hello there everybody, Sabai92 Nightmare, and yes, we're back to a regularly scheduled uploading schedule thing that I've scheduled. Did I say scheduled enough times? Welcome back to Chaos Head Noah. So last episode was a combination, it was actually like a two-parter here. It was basically one session I did, but anyway, that's not important. So, Yua decides to not really make her case in the best, healthiest way. A tad too intense, to say the least. Overall, a really well-executed scene, by the way. Like, goddamn, music and everything, it was really good. So, leading us to run away, making us look like a complete lunatic, which I'm starting to think that maybe we kind of are a little bit of a lunatic. And then we get to see this little side story with Bon, and, it's his whole thing about magnetism and using that coin was fascinating. That's really all I could say about it. There's something about, okay, you know what? It's a trope I kind of like. There's something about this I don't know if there's a term for it, but the old, experienced detective showing off the newbie through very bizarre means, like, let me show you how it's done the business. By doing something so completely bafflingly weird, but also make it so interesting. And how it actually makes sense just whenever he explains it. I don't know if there's a name for that sort of term, but I liked that. I'm really liking this little side story with the detectives. Anyway. I don't even want to get started on this. The group dive hadn't been a mass suicide. It, too, was a murder case. The culprit had been there when it had happened. And as for who'd filmed the video, I knew who it was. Mixed in with the sound of the strong wind on the rooftop. Mixed in with the sounds of the 5 people crying out in grief. Mixed in with the blaring horns from Shudo Expressway below. I was certain that I'd heard one particular faint sound. It was the sound of creaking steel. A sound that can only be heard when the cameraman was moving forward. The sound of a wheelchair.
あの時、僕の前に現れたのは現実だったんだね。
Oh yeah. The one in the wheelchair.
カメラの目線が低すぎだよ。
Shogun.
将軍。
Oh my god, if I would have went a little bit further, I would have finished chapter 4. I am stupid. There's probably some people that are like, oh my god, if you would have gone like a couple of minutes further, you would have finished the chapter, you idiot! To which I am an idiot. To no one's surprise, the leaked video of the group dive exploded. Grimm had told me that the entire internet was going insane, and lo and behold, he wasn't lying. I was kind of looking at the links here. A huge chunk of @channel was now convinced that all 4 new-gen murders had been committed by the same person. Whose eyes are those eyes? Is the new-gen killer's signature move. The guy who upped it on YouTube has to be the perp. Yeah. Whose eyes are those eyes? It's so freaking sweet. What the hell's wrong with you? God damn. Whoa, okay, I'll report that immediate. Whoa. Whose eyes are as... TLDR, whose eyes are those eyes was written out at the scene of the vampire, yeah? That means there's a connection between the first and the last case, despite all the people saying they had nothing to do with each other. Which then means that the man-child and crucifixion cases also have to be connected. Damn, I'm getting way too into this. This is, you know what? Actually, wait a minute. Good question. When did Chaos Head originally come out? Because this is some of the shit that you would see being discussed on the internet today, where they are just taking out these horrible crimes that are being committed, or they just take that and they'll just talk about it like it's the newest sort of drama that's on the internet. Whenever, like, no, people fucking died. but I'm a hypocrite. I have also partake in sort of theorizing about sort of these things, so I'm just making a observation here. Whose eyes are those eyes? Also, Wheat's first appearance was at the vampire case, so it couldn't possibly have copied the group dive. No, don't look. Smoke Wheat every day. Oh, shut up. I saw the video, but it looks fake as shit. Some actors just did it for views. I bet one parakeet on it. The hell's a parakeet? Also, I just realized these usernames: rookie baseball player, lion dancer, secretary, wage slave. Also, a couple tips as went up. I'm just going to keep reading these. I saw the... oh, here it is. You twats really ought to stop using whose eyes or whatever the fuck so often. The killer just wants attention, and you're giving it to him. The same dude did all the new gen murders? Whose eyes are those eyes? Nah. The tower in that vid's actually just 2 meters tall. And there's a trampoline or something below it, LMAO. Agreed. If that phrase keeps being a trend, it'll keep being more murders. Y'all need to tone it the fuck down. It's not just a meme anymore. Weird. I live in Shibuya. LMAO. Obligatory don't look. The YouTube video. It's topping the charts. The view count. It's skyrocketing. 17-year-old office lady. Kanto? Film connoisseur. It's so brutal. Don't look, guys. Time to make the MHK News top report. Anything from the perp behind Wheat yet? Breaking news taking over every station. Oh, these freaking people. Alright, let's go over the 2 new tips that popped up real quick. Parika, a fictional unit of currency that appears in a certain manga. Well, the only fictional money that I can think of off of the top of my head here is probably Maka from SMT. Oh, and Cole from Armored Core. We only know it. Too long, didn't read. Typically used to request short summary of a lengthy poster thread. It usually can also refer to the summary itself. I feel dumb that it took me a long time to figure out what TLDR actually stood for. The news on TV was just as erratic. Like 140 had said, every available station save for TOTV had been interrupted by the breaking news where they played the leaked video on loop. The broadcast had lasted for about an hour. It was pretty shocking to see that the footage had actually been broadcast across the entire country. Of course, all the stations censored the part where they dived off the building at the end, but it was still extremely impactful. The opinions of those on TV were more or less the exact same as everyone's online. They all attributed the 4 new-gen cases to the same culprit. Then again, that wasn't really much of a surprise. They had finally found a common denominator between them, after all. Whose eyes are those eyes? It had become a popular phrase all throughout Shibuya. The phrase had first been shown to the world when the details behind the 4th case, the vampire, were shattered. People then learned that the victims of the group dive had said it as well, even though it occurred a month before the vampire case. In the 4 incidents that had occurred so far, it had been used in both the first and the last ones. It had to mean something. It made the theory that a single person was behind the murders all the more probable. The police then held a press conference stating that they intended to identify the person who'd posted the video as soon as they could. A number of politicians commented that the actions of the culprit were completely deplorable and that they needed to be apprehended immediately. Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure they would do that. It would be kind of weird if there's like a press conference with the police and they're talking about a new murder and the police chief just kind of comes up and like, I gotta admit, that perp, he's pretty gnarly. Got top tier material, I gotta tell you. The way he just did that body, whoo boy, I tell you what, that was some good shit right there. I couldn't have done it better myself. That'd be freaking weird. That's like that'd just be a dystopian horror tale where if police are complimenting on criminals legitimately. The YouTube video had been removed by a moderator less than 3 hours after it was uploaded, but by then it was too late. @channel had already gotten their hands on it, and from there, nothing could have stopped it from being re-uploaded and spreading like wildfire. It's the internet. And then, just before midnight, the following facts had been revealed through a police statement.
Like I said, the guy was pretty gnarly.
Sorry. The group dive video was uploaded from a computer located in a Shibuya manga cafe known as @Cafe. It was uploaded from a specific private room in the facility. Room number 37. Oh. Ooh. That's freaky. I sat paralyzed in my seat, my head hanging low as I hugged myself tightly. Without realizing it, I had started eavesdropping. I was becoming hypersensitive to the voices coming from my surroundings. I overheard a lot of conversations, and unsurprisingly, the group dive video was the topic on everyone's minds. Some girls were even jokingly saying to each other, "Whose eyes are those eyes?" I bit my lip and let my gaze wander onto the surface of my desk. Okay, now I legitimately feel bad for Takumi here. That video was evidence. Evidence that Shogun actually existed. Evidence that I hadn't killed anyone. It proved that I didn't have multiple personalities. That the old-looking man in a wheelchair was the new-gen killer. But why would Shogun even upload it? Why would he hint at himself being the killer when the culprit's identity had been shrouded in mystery so far? Only two explanations made sense to me. One, Shogun was showing off by killing people because it amused him, which is pretty likely considering that time when he'd appeared in front of me. Or he was trying to provoke me. For some reason, Shogun and his underling Yua were doing everything in their power to fuck with me. And he still believes Yua is working under Shogun. Who knows, she might be, but I'm not trying to give in to his delusions here. I didn't know the reason why. I just knew that they were trying to frame me as the new-gen culprit. At this point, even the police were probably suspicious of me. Shogun was trying to corner me.
僕のメッセージは受け取ってくれた？目覚めるんだ。早く。
You must awaken.
でないと、もっとたくさんの人が死んじゃうことになるから。
If Takumi doesn't awaken, many more people are going to die. But if Shogun is like this supposed killer, then I don't know. I'm trying my best to figure this out.
忘れないで。君は逃げちゃいけない。
When he'd appeared in front of me, that was what he'd said. It felt like he'd been trying to intimidate me, and that he was basically saying, "I'm going to kill you too! Don't you dare run away!" And now, he totally blindsided me by uploading that video, making sure that it spread all throughout Japan. There was no doubt that Shogun had moved his plan to the next phase. It had been naive to think that I wasn't being targeted anymore. If anything, it'd be more accurate to say that his plotting against me had moved from passive to active. It was now finally in full swing. I was terrified, especially of that video. Shogun had killed 5 high schoolers without even lifting a finger, despite being even worse off physically than me. If all the new gen cases were actually his doing, then all those other gruesome murders, the man-child, crucifixion, and vampire, had all been enacted by that very same frail body. Or maybe Yua had helped him out. In any case, I didn't have any faith that I'd be able to defend myself against people who'd commit such horrible atrocities. Just thinking of them sent chills down my spine. Chills that combined with the red-hot anger I was feeling. Why was I being targeted like this? What did I do to deserve it? And there was also that message. Whose eyes are those eyes? If I wasn't careful, I would start trembling uncontrollably. To keep that under control, I had to keep my body from relaxing. I had to always be aware of my surroundings and be ready to bolt the second I sensed someone approaching. I didn't know when Shogun or Yua would show themselves again. Hell, I had no guarantee that Yua was Shogun's only underling. Maybe even my own classmates were under his influence. Their laughter and idle chatter acting as mere camouflage until just the right moment. I had to find a way to parry surprise attacks like the one in Ad Cafe yesterday. I might recommend a buckler. If I didn't, have it killed next time for sure. I needed to get a D-sword ASAP. The only way out of this was to get a D-sword. I'd internalized what Ayase and Senna had said, and I'd searched online about it, and it all had me convinced. Getting my hands on a D-sword would save me. The night before, I desperately tried to gather information on D-swords while keeping an eye on the new gen shitstorm, but my research barely bore any results. I cradled my head, tearing at my greasy hair. Take a shower. How's I supposed to find his D-sword? I know, I was joking, by the way. Like, I know, he's freaking the fuck out. He probably doesn't even have time to think about that sort of thing right now.
見つけなくちゃいけない。自分自身で。方法なんて私にはわからないの。
Ayase had said that, but that was barely even a hint. My thoughts weighed heavily on me. I was starting to freak out. My heart was steadily getting crushed by anxiety. I needed to hurry and find a D-sword, whatever it took. I had to find one. If I didn't, I'd be done for. Before becoming New Gen's next victim, I had to find one. But I needed to find out how. I had no clue how we were supposed to get one. I needed some kind of hint. Something. Anything. I had to figure it out fast, or I'd lose my chance at finding it. Was I even capable of finding one? This was no time to be at school. It was my own life, or graduating. I didn't need to debate which one was more important. And yet, why was I... Sensing someone approach me, I quickly raised my head and braced myself for contact.
びっくりした。
Oh, hi, Rimi. Rimi was standing there, blinking repeatedly as if she'd been stunned by my sudden movement. I made you jump? Stop scaring me like that! All the stress in my body released at once, and I crumpled on top of my desk with a big sigh.
タク、大丈夫？
No, I'm freaking the fuck out! Fulfilling her usual quota, Rimi peered into my face. I hurriedly lowered my eyes.
顔、真っ青だよ。
More pale than usual?
汗もすごいし、目も血走っちゃってる。
Was Rimi with me? Or against me? An ally or an enemy? After she'd saved me, I'd grown a lot less wary of her. But there were still a ton of unanswered questions that I had yet to figure out. Like why she'd been covered in blood at the scene of crucifixion. Or how we were supposed to be such good friends and that we'd been classmates since our first year, yet I had no recollection of it.
タク、体調悪いの？
Rimi tilted her head slightly, a weird expression on her face.
なんでもない。
Survey says that was a lie. I turned away from her. I couldn't say it to her face. When the classes for the day finally ended, I felt like every ounce of energy had been drained from my body. Even during class, all I'd done was remain on high alert, repeatedly scanning my surroundings. I hadn't slept since yesterday, but staying this vigilant kept me wide awake. The school day felt like an eternity, and the sheer amount of time I'd spent there sent me spiraling into a deep depression. Why is it that the way we perceive time changes depending on our mood? I ask that every fucking day. I've worked in my job for almost 10 years at this point, and it's gotten to the point where I have an autopilot mode. Like, my brain will just go into, like, automatic function, and by the time I suddenly realize what's going on, 4 hours will have passed. And it feels like only 10 minutes. It is legitimately crazy how our mind just changes our perception of time. That our time is just a man-made construct, and we are never meant to actually decipher its meaning and function. Some say that time flows at a constant rate, but that might not actually be true. The speed of time changes depending on each person's subjective perspective. I've always theorized that it's a conspiracy to homogenize humanity's understanding of the concept of time by implementing units like seconds and hours. Also, they can deceive people into forgetting that perception of time varies from person to person. Yeah? And building off that theory, if the length of time is dependent on each person's perception, then conversely, doesn't that mean that the flow of time can be controlled at will? As I thought about that, I remembered Senna talking about controlling other people's wills. And conversely,
生まれながらに目が不自由な人でも目の前にある景色がちゃんと見えるようになる。ビデオカメラのような映像機器を介してな。
Video data from a camera is converted into electrical signals that are sent directly to the brain, causing the person to observe that sequence of images. Conversely, that would mean converting the images that a person observes into electrical signals, then sending them to equipment that can render video. The aforementioned equipment didn't have to be a video camera either. For example, what would happen if you connected a person to a hard disk recorder, and then showed them recordings of someone's vacation? What if instead of real-life recordings, you showed them an anime? Technically, anime is 2D and therefore delusionary. But people who are blind from birth have never seen anything from the 3D world. So if they were shown an anime and told, this is how the world is, then they would believe that the 2D world is reality, right? I'm not entirely sure if that is the case. That's a line of thinking I'm not entirely sure I want to go down. To each person, that delusion would be their reality. A delusion perceived as reality. Oh, speaking of, this might actually be a decent time to actually do a delusion. It's been a while since we've had to do one. Here's another example. If person A sent an image from their brain to a hard disk recorder that processed it and transmitted the image to person B's brain, then person A's delusion would become person B's reality. Delusion became reality. In theory, it was possible. Holy shit, I was a genius! I was over the moon by how brilliant my theory was! Wait a minute, I just realized what might happen if I do this. Maybe that was how I'd acquire a D-sword. Ayase had said that they had something to do with delusions, hadn't she? Alright, I should hurry up and go home so I can look it up. Or maybe not. I left the classroom and headed for the school entrance, refusing to let my eyes wander anywhere. As I made my way out, I stuck to my usual routine, walking as close to the wall as I could, all while keeping my head low so that it wouldn't stand out. The final bell had already rung a little bit ago, so while the students on cleaning duty or doing club shit were still around, basically everyone who'd opted to go straight home already had. The school always felt somewhat lonely. or even wistful after the final bell rang. No matter where I went, it always felt that way, whether they were ancient buildings made out of wood or newer structures like Sume. Well, not that I'd ever set foot in any wooden school buildings or in anything other than eroge. As I unconsciously walked through the corridor under the setting sun, my mind wandering all around all sorts of inconsequential stuff, I spotted a strange figure coming toward me. It was a single girl waddling forward, carrying 2 large cardboard boxes. I couldn't see her face behind the boxes, and she probably couldn't see a thing in front of her. Someone was asking to eat shit. If this were an eroge, this scenario would 100% result in us running into each other and me tripping a flag. I thought about attempting to do just that, but concluded that it'd be best to keep it as just a thought, because in reality, I didn't want to actually do it. Instead, my alarm bells started going off. There was a legitimate possibility that she was one of Shogun's assassins. Stay away from her. Be extremely careful. Is it going to be the girl that you just left at the bottom of the steps again? I paid a careful attention to each of her steps. She kept drawing nearer, sometimes tilting to the left or to the right. I, meanwhile, kept walking along the left wall of the corridor. As the girl started moving to her right, I sped up. We then passed each other without any issues. But right then I heard something fall, and I quickly turned my gaze downward without even thinking. Oh! Someone had dropped their student handbook. I stopped in my tracks. Had the girl with the boxes dropped it? As I stared at the student handbook, my thoughts began to wander. Doubt arose in my mind. Why had that student's handbook fallen at that exact moment? It was way too conspicuous. It was practically begging to get picked up. Was it a trap? Had she dropped it on purpose? The girl had been carrying boxes with both hands, so how would she do that? Her hands were occupied. If the student handbook had been in her skirt pocket, it would have been entirely impossible for her to take it out and drop it. However, I hadn't seen where it had fallen from. Maybe the girl had been holding it from the very beginning, hiding it beneath the boxes? I wasn't sure. It might not have been on purpose. The more realistic option was that it was just a coincidence. I followed the girl's figure with my eyes, or tried to anyway.
Huh?
At that precise moment, the girl took a turn down the hall and disappeared. I'd only seen her for a split second. She hadn't looked like someone I knew. Her hair had been short, I think? No, maybe it'd been long, actually. I couldn't say for sure which. Naturally, I hadn't seen her face either. When I'd passed her, it had been hidden behind the boxes. The student handbook and I were now all alone in the hallway. The sensible options probably were to either pick it up and deliver it to the staff room or rush after the girl and ask her about it, but I was hesitant to carry out either. I looked around me. There were no other students in sight. Also, this is interesting. It doesn't even feel like a delusion right now. It's not doing the wibbly-wobbly effect that most of the delusions have been doing up to this point. This feels like it's just literally continuing. I could somewhat make out the sound of girls laughing happily in the distance. It probably wasn't a trap. The handbook's owner had already left. How could this possibly end up being a trap? Could there be a small bomb inside the handbook? Small bombs! No, that's only hidden in the food. No, that was way too unrealistic. If I picked up the handbook right that moment, nothing would happen. Yeah, nothing was going to happen. Just in case I should check the handbook to see who the girl was. She could have been one of Shogun's underlings. I should check her name, class, and photo, then leave the handbook here. I couldn't be fucked to go after her and give it back. Nevertheless, I still carefully scanned the area just to be sure no one was around. Then after I was sure I was alone, I picked up the handbook and casually opened it to the first page. Oh. Ooh. Whose eyes are those eyes? I hurriedly threw the handbook away. What was that? I'd never been so creeped out before. It was so unbelievably eerie. It didn't just scare me. I felt sick to my stomach. This is very clearly malicious, blatant harassment aimed specifically at me. Who would go so far as to do this? Wait. Of course. It had to be the girl from before! That girl was Shogun's underling. She had to be! I'd only glanced at the student handbook, but all the information that should have been on the first page, such as the name, the birth date, and the class, was blacked out. In addition, the portrait that should have been attached had been removed. I felt like I was going to puke. I was hit with an intense wave of nausea. I wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. Covering my mouth, I moved toward the stairs. I ran through the courtyard with no real destination in mind until I could no longer hold back the urge to vomit. Ew. The second I fell to my knees, the entire contents of my stomach began spilling out. The stomach acid made my throat burn. My vision blurred from tears. It was hard to breathe. The aftertaste was absolutely vile. Or bile, you could say. I must have been way more maxed than I thought I was. Maxed? It might have been because of the all-nighter I had pulled. Oh. As I wiped the corners of my mouth, I looked all around me restlessly, but I couldn't see a soul. However, the shadowy corners and the blind spots, I'd never paid attention to, had become terrifying to me. I began to think that Yua and Shogun might be hiding in them. The second my brain came up with that, I could no longer take a single step. Someone save me. I wanted to cry. I felt nauseous all over again. I didn't end up vomiting, but I dry heaved several times. The pain made me cry even harder. I was nearly sobbing at this point. But then, suddenly, someone's hand began to gently rub my back. Terrified, I turned around.
大丈夫。
Rimi. Rimi was there.
大丈夫だよ。
I wasn't being condemned for feeling this way. No, her words were a tender affirmation.
私はタクの味方だから。
She didn't even so much as grimace at the smell of my vomit. She didn't show any signs of disdain when she saw my face covered in tears and snot, nor when she saw the vomit still clinging to the corners of my mouth. She simply gave me a gentle smile, reassuring me that it would all be okay. She drew closer to me. She continued rubbing my back gently. Why was it that before, and even now, every time I thought I needed to be saved, Rimi would always heroically appear in front of me? Right now, Rimi was right here. It reassured me. I felt better. Before I even realized what was happening, my true feelings began to pour out. Despite the fact that I never talked about myself.
助けて。一人は怖いんだ。
Maybe that was why I bothered coming to school. Up until now, I'd always thought I'd be way better off alone. Of course, even now, it was still terrifying to talk to others. I wasn't at all confident in my ability to actually talk to anyone, but with Shogun and Yua trying to destroy my life, I'd never been so anxious, scared, and alone. I wanted someone to be there for me. They didn't even need to be nice to me, I just wanted someone to be present.
一人は怖い。
だったら私が一緒にいてあげる。
Those words held no ill will, no hesitation, no irresolution.
さすがに24時間ずっとは無理だけど。
Her shy gaze suddenly moved up toward the sky. Her eyes were looking so far away. Just what could she be looking at in that sky?
朝一緒に学校行って学校では休み時間にどうでもいいこと話してお昼休みは一緒にご飯食べて 夕方一緒に帰って、帰るついでにたまにどこかのお店に寄ったりして、
Pretty simple stuff.
タクの部屋でちょっとだけおしゃべりして、それでまた明日ねって手を振って別れて、そんなのでいいなら私いくらでもしてあげるよ。そういうの結構憧れなんだ。
Huh. And this is supposed to be a positive delusion. But again, maybe it's just... I don't know. Wasn't that almost kind of like being in a relationship? I was stunned. She was completely serious. I could see it on her face.
どうしてどうしてそこまでしてくれるの？
それは
Because a flag if I'd ever seen one, right? Because I love you, Taku. I could see it coming from a mile away. That had to be what she was going to say, right? Granted, I had no clue why Remy would have fallen for me. No, wait, this shit had to be bait. Something similar had happened before, with Yua. With her, it had all been nothing more than deception, ending with me drowning in the depths of despair. So I couldn't get my hopes up. I had to prepare for the worst. It was possible that Remy, too, was an
石
Huh? She suddenly saluted me. I was taken aback by the suddenness of it, and my mind shot to the possibility that she was about to reveal her true self. And yet, all that I saw in Remy's face was that same bright, gentle smile.
そんなの友達だからに決まってるでしょ。私にしてみればタクを助けてあげるのは当然なの。どうしてとか寂しいこと言わない。
Definitely didn't go the direction you thought it was gonna go, did it, Taku?
わかった？
Because what are friends for?
うん。
Because we were friends. If she'd said because I love you, Taku, and this is how I'm gonna show it, it would have felt like my life had begun anew. But even if we'd be friends, that alone made me incredibly happy. Having someone being kind to me. Having someone do things for me without expecting anything in return. I couldn't believe how happy it made me. It might have been the very first time I'd ever felt like that. But above all else, it made me realize that I wasn't alone. To me, Remy's existence was my salvation. The nausea I'd felt earlier had finally subsided, and I was feeling much better.
はい、使う？
Remy held out a vermilion handkerchief. It had a faint floral scent. I meekly accepted it, but I was hesitant to use it.
汚しちゃっていいよ。タクにあげる。
ありがとう。
Hey! I felt guilty about it, but I ultimately decided that I would accept her generosity. I wiped off the vomit that had stained the corners of my mouth with the handkerchief. It was the first time I'd ever received a present from a girl that wasn't a family member. I wasn't so sure about calling it a present, though. For me, someone who was so isolated and helpless, even a simple thing like this felt like an irreplaceable treasure to me. I felt so delighted, so relieved that I nearly started to cry all over again.
それじゃあ帰ろっか。
Her voice was so carefree.
一緒に。
Apparently, she already intended to make good of what she'd said before, that she'd stay by my side. Not that I told her whether I wanted her to or not yet, but it wasn't like I had any intention of saying no. Being alone terrified me. I didn't want to be alone. As I was now, I had no one to rely on but Remy. However, I still couldn't say that I was stable now, even with Remy with me. On the way back, I chose to take a different route than usual, walking cautiously all the way. I couldn't stop trembling. That was actually a good scene. It didn't even feel like an actual delusion either, because if this is a delusion, it's going on for a long time. Every corner with even an inch of shadow seemed dangerous. Every time I got to any kind of intersection, I was tormented by delusions of Yua or Shogun waiting for me at the end of it, making me freeze in place. Whenever that happened, Remy would take over. She would look over toward the end of the intersecting road, and when the closest was clear, she'd nod to me.
大丈夫。誰もいないよ。
Relieved, I followed after her. Everything she'd done without even a hint of irritation.
ねえ、聞いていいかな？
Don't say the fucking phrase, for God's sake. Do not say the stupid fucking phrase that's been haunting me throughout this whole fucking thing.
一体何があったの？
Oh, thank God. It was a simple question. What happened back there? I was slightly hesitant to tell her. If I said something here, Remy could become a target for Shogun. I would get her involved.
話したくないなら無理に話さなくても。
It's interesting because with Remy's characterization, she wants to know, but she's leaving it entirely up to the character with this additional phrase like, hey, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to.
いや、話すよ。
She's basically leaving it all in Takami's hands whether he wants to talk about it or not. And it looks like he does want to talk about it. My mouth had already started moving. I definitely didn't feel comfortable with the prospect of getting her involved, but if I didn't explain to her what was happening here, she wouldn't be able to understand the gravity of the situation. For the sake of my well-being, I had to turn a blind eye to the possibility that it might put her in danger. She'd been the one who'd said she'd stay by my side, so I was sure she'd be fine with it, so I told her everything. I told her that Shogun was the actual new-gen culprit, that Yua was one of his underlings, that they were both stalking me. What had happened in front of 107 the other day, I laid it all bare, albeit not without a fair share of stuttering. Oh, shit. Now her reaction is going to be the real question here. When I told her about the time Shogun appeared before in a wheelchair, Remy's lips pursed and she began to ponder. I'd always wanted to ask her about back then. Seemed like now was as good a time as any.
いたかな？車椅子のおじいさんなんて。
Interesting, and she's not even trying to mock him. She's actually like pondering about what he's talking about and actually thinking like, I wonder if I've seen anything like that. She certainly didn't sound like she had.
思い出して。大切なことだ。
でも。
Remy frowned, almost like she was hesitant to say what was on her mind.
そもそもあの時渋谷の駅前が無人だったなんてことなかったよ。
To her perspective, there were people around, but to Takami's perspective, there weren't people here.
いつもと同じだった。
So that was what Remy had seen back then. I was hoping that she and I would agree on what we'd seen, but I guess not. Remy or me? Which one of us had seen what the area was actually supposed to look like? Had I been wrong about what I'd seen after all? Had that empty Shibuya been nothing more than a delusion of mine? But if it was, then there was a small discrepancy. An old man had appeared in that empty Shibuya. Shogun. What was the explanation for that? If the Shibuya being empty part was a delusion, then Shogun could be a delusion as well.
駅前って人が多いでしょ？だから車椅子の人がいてもなかなか気がつかないだろうし。要するに見てないってこと。
In her own way, I mean, again, this could easily just be an act. Listen to me. I'm starting to sound like Takumi. Yua fucked up my perception of a lot of the people in this story to where I literally can't trust anybody's acts, or I cannot trust anybody. Holy crap. The thing is, I want to know more about Yua, but holy fuck, she disrupted how I see any of the characters in this damn story. Good lord. That is actually damn, that was actually really good.
ごめんね、役に立てなくて。
For the time being, I'm going to try to treat Rimi as being genuine here. At the very least, I knew Shogun himself wasn't a delusion. At first, I thought he was just a delusion, but ever since the group dive video had come out, my perception of him had swapped to the exact opposite. Shogun was real. He existed in reality. But that empty Shibuya, meanwhile, it could have been just a delusion. And in reality, the front of the station had been overflowing with people, just like it always was. I was the only one who'd observed something different, a different set of scenery than everyone else. But how could that be possible?
ねえ、それよりお願いがあるんだけど、いい？
A favor? What kind of favor, out of curiosity? Rimi joined her hands together in a prayer-like gesture.
CD を買いに行きたいんだ。せっかくここまで来てからちょっと寄っていきたいんだけど。
She really is just kind of keeping up on her promise. And the thing is, this could also literally just be like her way of like trying to get our character into a better mindset. Like, hey, let's do something mundane, something simple. Let's try to stabilize you for a minute here by just doing something small, you know?
いいかな？
I really wanted to get back to my base as soon as possible. The reason I'd taken such a long detour was because I was afraid of the possibility that Yua or Shogun might have been ready to ambush me. It wasn't so I could go on some shopping spree. But if I were to refuse after all of that, she might end up going back on her promise to stay by my side. If I were to fuck up badly enough, she could get angry and leave by herself. What the hell should I do? This sucked. I needed Rimi to stay with me. I wasn't sure I could make it to my base alone. In the end, I wasn't able to refuse. So I did what I had to in order to survive and stuck as close as possible to her. I guess it was reasonable to think that Yua wouldn't attack me in a public place like this. But I was more afraid that they might have been hiding among the crowd. Every time I would almost bump into someone, I would scream inside my head.
パトカーだ。
Police cars? Rimi's words frightened me. I quickly retreated behind her. Whoa! Whoa! What the? Rimi was right. There were two police cars parked on the road, and right next to them were 3 police officers in uniform. Oust the criminal. For a safer city, not my Shibuya. Protect Shibuya from terrorists. The police had also been pursuing me. What are they shouting? If I knew Japanese, I would try my best to translate that, but I just... There's probably somebody that knows Japanese a bit better that can probably translate, but I'm gonna... I'll see what I can do. Obviously, the basis behind it was a completely false accusation, but the incompetent police didn't know that. Those cops might have been searching for me too. Or so I thought, but that apparently wasn't the case. The cops' gazes were fixated on the crowd of people marching down the street like they owned it. Were they protesters or something? There's the homeless guy again! He keeps showing up! They were carrying these giant signs and flags, and they were wearing the typical sashes and headbands you'd see among those kinds of people. Like, I can't unsee him! I keep seeing him everywhere! There was a child marching along with his parents, holding hands with both of them. He looked like he had no idea where he was, and he was wearing a t-shirt with the words, "Whose eyes are those eyes?" written on it in permanent marker. I bit my lip.
何のデモだろうね。
The people marching were all ages and genders. Their march was mostly silent and solemn, but at times they all echoed their chants. Drive the devil out of Shibuya. Expel his demons from this place. Okay. I'm guessing that's what they were yelling? I'm still gonna try to translate it.
悪魔
On the signs were a number of different things, such as drive the devil out of town or protect Shibuya from terrorists. It must have been some kind of protest against the New Gen incidents. There was no point in protesting against that. If they had the time to do that, then could they please just hunt down Shogun and kill him? Then I wouldn't need to worry about him anymore.
タク、行こう。
Okay. Clearly uninterested, Rimi turned her gaze away from the protesters and quickly started walking toward the entrance to the CD shop. Let's just get our minds off of things, go to the CD shop, okay? As soon as we entered the shop, Rimi headed straight toward the indie section. Best sound, top 10, bonus point campaign. Unlike the J-pop section, there weren't many customers there. Rimi stopped in front of the shelf P and started looking for the CD she wanted. But after a minute browsing, her shoulders slumped.
やっぱりないな。
What were you looking for? An indie group whose name started with P? Could that be...
タクは
Phantasm.
ファンタズムってバンドを知ってる？今話題になってるけど。
Oh, yep. So it was them. How could I not know them? I'd even gone to see their concert and I owned a CD. I nodded and Rimi smiled.
私、そういう情報は結構疎くて、最近になって知ったんだ。
And you wanted to get a taste of what they do?
それで、友達に借りようかと思ったんだけど、なかなか手に入らないらしくて、誰も持ってないんだよ。だから CD 買うしかないかなって思って、ここ1週間ぐらいあちこち探してみたんだけど、どこも売り切れ中。次はいつ入るんだろう。
You got a copy of the CD. Why don't you just give it to her?
僕
Oh, come on. You got it. You got it. You got it.
持ってる。
Rimi's eyes went wide.
持ってるって CD?
I showed her a nod. And when I did that, Rimi... Oh. Uh-oh. Put her hands on my shoulder. Oh, boy. Here we go. Okay. So my thought process is if I go green, she's like, I'll date you if you give me the CD. And the other one is, where did you get that CD? And like go creep mode. I feel, Let's go. Put her hands on my shoulders. She suddenly brought her face in closer to mine, which immediately made me flustered. The sweet smell of shampoo wafting from Rimi's hair tickled my nose, and I felt my face turning red.
ねえタク、取引しよう。
I'll date you if you give me the CD. That's what I'm immediately predicting this green one's gonna go to, so... No. I don't want to run that risk. Deal?
その CD 貸してくれたら、見返りに私。
She looked at me, her expression dead serious. I gulped. She'll what? What is she gonna do?
と
was lost in thought. She probably didn't have anything in mind yet.
見返りなんていらない。
There we go.
それって貸してくれないっていうこと？
Mimi's shoulders drooped in disappointment.
そっか。残念。
いや、違うよ。
Yeah, he didn't finish what he was saying. I knew that's not what he meant.
見返りなんて必要ないってこと。普通に貸すよ。
There we go. There, that's good right there. That's good.
タク。ありがとう。
A big smile shot onto her face. She looked incredibly happy. She looked like she was halfway ready to glomp me. Oh dear God, how long has it been since I heard that word? I couldn't say I made girls happy very often, so it inadvertently made me happy too. I was glad I'd been brave enough to say it. No delusion needed.
じゃあ見返りなしで借ります。となれば善は急げ。タクの家にレッツゴー。